Pleasant good afternoon to one and all. Welcome to the bench meeting on this, what should I say? It's an overcast Sunday afternoon. Had a few showers earlier. I guess this is system coming up from the south. But overall, it's been cool, and we have needed some rain over the last few days because it was fairly hot. So, welcome, and I hope most of you have had a pleasant day overall, despite the sometimes inclement weather. In terms of the sports fans, obviously there's a lot to take in the sense that we've got the finals of the Nations League. I should say before I continue that Gawain will be joining us in a little bit as well. But yeah, the Nations League is taking place right now, as well as we just witnessed the conclusion, the thrilling conclusion of the IPL. So there's a lot of cricket to be discussed as well. Then we also have been looking on at some heavyweight boxing action. In fact, that will be the first topic that I'll be dealing with this afternoon. So it's relatively it should be a relatively intense afternoon. I do think also I want to discuss a bit of the EPL, even though we didn't have any EPL games this weekend due to the international break. And then there's also some CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers that I also we can delve into a little bit. So there's a lot of interesting sporting information and a lot to discuss. So welcome again. So as I said, I would start off with the boxing. I'm not really a fan of the pugilistic sports. I would follow it in as much as obviously you have the characters in that particular discipline, and then there's also some history to it as well too, in terms of where it came from and everything else, and the obvious rise of characters such as Muhammad Ali and George Foreman and Mike Tyson, and now we have Deontay Wilder and Nick Fury. Those were the two heavyweights that went up against each other last evening in Las Vegas. And for the third time in a row, Fury has floored Deontay Wilder. It was a very intense bout for those who are fans of boxing. It was, all intents and purposes, it provided the level of entertainment that's expected, and both athletes would have hit the floor a few, at least once or twice during the course of the night. So for those, as I said, who are into this kind of boxing, would obviously know a bit more of the history of both Wilder and Fury. But needless to say, Fury has obviously been traditionally more outspoken, and Wilder hasn't backed down. But then you're also looking at it from the perspective of, we haven't beaten a man once, twice. You could afford to be more outspoken. You can afford it. It seems almost, at least from my very limited perspective, that he has gotten into his head somehow, you know. And then obviously they have the little exchange after the match, which again I think is. I'm not asking you to necessarily to be friends, but there's a certain level of sportsmanship that goes into whatever activity you're participating in, even if it is of a more violent nature. But at the same time, it does not in any way take away from the fact that it's a fair result. It was a good match, good display. I mean, that's what the fans paid to see. And therefore, yeah, part of why Wilder is not able to make that step to be able to defeat Fury is that, or part of the thing he has on him is the fact that whatever he's missing, that doesn't allow him to feel free to show that level of sportsmanship. Because if you're defeated, more often than not, as bad as you feel, you're defeated. And there's not much you can do. Yes, there are times when you showed up, when someone shows off on you, and obviously that's not necessarily a tasteful approach from the victor either. But at the same time, but again, boxing is not something I can speak to with any real detail. Needless to say that from the outside looking in, Wilder has all the ability. He deserves his position as number 2 in the world. But in order to get to number 1, you got to beat, the best, the one that's in front of you. And, I don't know if Fury would give you a 4th chance to try and do it. Maybe so, because, as I said, I think he thinks, or he knows he has your number. Yeah. It's an interesting discussion that I think we can all agree that it's not the end of the battle. And then you also have the Anthony Joshua saga. He just lost on count a few weeks ago. He had about 3 belts, WBC, and I discussed it a little while ago. He had about 3 belts or so, and he himself would have to now, having lost his title, now have to gather a few victories of his own outside, and regain some of his belts, maybe fight the same individual to regain some of his belts to have a chance of that's to Fury. He again did the work, and we look forward to the next edition of this saga. Yeah, so that's what pugilism. Final big piece on the big fight last night. NBA at this point in time, still going through preseason games. Needless to say, I like how my Knicks have started. They're so far 2-0, and this last one they've done so without their big man. So it's a good start. The additional players that they brought in over the summer have already started doing their part, pulling their roles, showing their abilities, and it seems to be fitting right into the way Coach Tom Thibodeau wants them to play. And you still have your veterans like Rose, whom unfortunately went off with a little bump, a little sore bump, the last game. But Knicks looking good this year. Not good enough to challenge yet, but I think we're only a window away from assembling the type of squad that can legitimately try and challenge, even though you are looking at a still very powerful New Jersey or Brooklyn Nets. Irving back to full health. Harding, I believe, was on the bench thus far. He should be back out early season for the latest. And obviously, he's also going. I think Irvin's situation is more of a vaccination status scenario where he is refusing to get vaccine, and the city now has a vaccine mandate. So some matches and some venues he may not be allowed to play in. So it's going to be interesting to see how he works through that. Kevin Durant is available and practicing. So that was just a segue. Apologies, in the sense that I was discussing the New York Knicks in relation to the ones whom we expect to come out on top this year in the East, as long as they can remain healthy, the New Jersey Nets. But no disrespect meant whatsoever to Giannis and his champion Milwaukee Bucks. I also wish to mention in good stead the LA Lakers, because LeBron, in his usual way, has stocked up as much as he can. Last year's finalists, the Phoenix Suns, have also retooled, and they're going to be back with a healthy full team, so they're not going to be underestimated this time. And also have the LA Clippers, whom again would have done a little bit of shifting and shuffling, and they're going to be retooling as well to see what they can do. So, as you said, right now, there's still a little bit of, it's just a few more weeks before the start of the new NBA season. And with the usual front runners, I am hoping, very distant, that my New York Knicks can find their way into at least give me a semi-final. Eastern Conference semi-final, I would not be as devastated. On to the Indian Premier League. Today we had the first of the 3 qualifiers. Now we remember with the Indian Premier League, their finals or their knockout rounds are a little bit different from other T20 competitions in the sense that they play a qualifier between the first top 2 teams. The winner of that qualifier will advance automatically to the final. Then you have the second qualifier, or the eliminator, I should say. That is where you have the 3rd place and the 4th place team. They play a one-off knockout. When they do this, the winner of that particular eliminator will then in turn face the loser of the first qualifier, and then the winner of that particular qualifier, which would be the second of the 2, of the third of the, well, technically the 3rd qualifier, but considering we call the second one the eliminator, then we can say it's the 3rd qualifier or the semi-final to make it easier, where winner of that will go on then to face the winner of the first qualifier, which would have been the winner of the persons who would attain, or the teams who would attain first place, second place. Now, having gone through that description, the first qualifier was played between the Delhi Capitals and the Chennai Super Kings. Now, this particular match is of interest. As I said, most of my interest in the CPL resides with the fact that I am looking at the West Indies team or the players who have been selected to play this competition and their overall performances. And if they are part of the T20 team, I'm looking at fitness and form going into the T20, the World Cup T20. And in saying so, the Delhi Capitals, they succumbed in a thrilling final over to the Chennai Super Kings. Delhi Capitals has Shimron Hetmyer, who performed creditably, all circumstances considered. He made 34 runs of 37 runs off 24 balls. So a scoring rate of 154, 1-6, and 3 4s. So that is a creditable performance. Also of note, it was Bravo that bowled to him to get him out. So Bravo obviously knows something, that because that would have inspired him getting hit by out and would have obviously prevented the Delhi Capitals from putting up an even greater total, given that this guy was going on at 150 plus a clip. So it's interesting that, yeah, as I said, that's the only other noteworthy factor for me out of the first innings. The two other creditable performers were Prithvi Shaw and Rishabh Pant, both of the Indian 20 team. So Rishabh put around 51 and Prithvi around 60. Their total Delhi Capitals was 172 for 5. Bravo's bowling figures overall were not that creditable. He went for 10.3 runs and over, which is a bit expensive, but he did get the valuable wicket of Shimron Hitmaier and thus prevented Delhi from posting a challenging score. When it was their turn to bat, it was Ruturaj Gaikwad and Robin Uthappa who gave the proper foundation to the Chennai Super Kings. Again, Dwayne Bravo being part of it. He did not have to bat in this particular match, and it was Dhoni, the captain, who did the honors of finishing off the innings with a 6 and thus giving Chennai Super Kings their win to go directly into the final. So Bravo's contribution overall would have been a bit of, he did the job in terms of removing the wicket, and as I said, 10.33 is still a bit expensive, and he would want to improve. The form coming into the overall World Cup is good. His fitness is good. Just celebrated a birthday only a few days ago, and this is 41st, if I'm correct. Search that. And it is good to know that he himself is still contributing at the highest levels. And as I was saying to someone this afternoon, if Chennai wins the IPL, that's still some ways off, Bravo would have won the CPL, the IPL, going into the World T20 with us. I want to give them a strong chance of retaining the World T20 title. So it is a very good possibility at this point that he could get all 3 titles, which would be a remarkable accomplishment for any cricketer, especially in this modern game, and especially someone of his age. So, it's looking good so far. It's not to say that he alone has been making contributions. He's obviously, it took overall performances from the entire team consistently, but the mere fact that he is still a valued contributor to the Chennai Super Kings, even at his age, it's good omens as well for West Indies cricket. Needless to say, Chennai overcame for 100. They ended up on 173 for 6 with 4 wickets in hand, 2 balls remaining. So that's to the Chennai Super Kings on their victory today. The next match is between the Kolkata Knight Riders and the Royal Challengers Bangalore. This match is going to be played tomorrow. Let me just confirm the date. Oh, it's actually going to be played. Yes, tomorrow. It's going to be played tomorrow. And then the next qualifier will be played on Wednesday. This will be semi-final. So RCB, who has KKR, has Sunil Narain and Andre Russell, who's battling fitness issues at this point in time, and it's a bit concerning because I would like him to get some rest to be able to heal a bit more before the upcoming World Cup. And the fact that he's already in the injury list and in the semi-final, I was about to say, it's a bit of a concern. Christopher Barnwell plays for, but I haven't seen him. This is Old Royal Challenge. This is 2020. What am I watching here? So RCB doesn't have any West Indian players in it. A lot of good players: Adam Zampa, Kane Richardson, Kasha Patel. It's a lot of players: Glenn Maxwell, and obviously A.B. de Villiers, Tim David, what is it? And the Indian captain Virat Kohli. So, yeah, again, in this particular instance, I do not think that KKR has what it takes to win the entire competition. They're too broken up, I believe, in terms of their injury issues and other challenges. They really haven't hit top form yet. So, I know it's not a good thing to say, but I'm not counting on them. I'm hoping they don't have to play the semi-final. I'm giving Kohli and them the okay to put them away tomorrow, just selfishly speaking, so as to get Andre Russell some much needed additional rest. He needs to be treated properly. He needs to rest because the West Indies need firing Andre Russell for the next coming World Cup in November. We're also looking at the fact that they are increasing the prize monies. Big announcement for that being made today. They're increasing the prize monies for the T20 World Cup, $1.6 billion for the team that wins. I'm assuming they win for US dollars. And the second place will get $800,000. The losing semi-finalists will get $400,000. So I guess this is a big announcement because this is the first time this is the World Cup. Imagine how Adam Sanford was to pay all that each player showing his little mini. I shouldn't say his mini because he was the one that keeps saying numerous places. He's the person that to me has started or had the bravery to kickstart the T20 franchise, and it is now a global, worldwide phenomenon. And despite his other business dealings, which most would know was not necessarily the best, I still tip my hat to a certain extent to him for having the bravery as a businessman to kickstart what is now, as I said, it's $1 billion industry. Most of them now are benefiting from it, at least those who are not involved. But yeah, so it's exciting news. 1.6 million to the winner. So if necessary, you hope that the West Indies can pull this off, and it will be good for the players, especially who would benefit greatly from the financial support. This also of noteworthy mention, in fact, I think more importantly, the DRS is going to be used in the T20 men's T20 World Cup for the first time. It has increased some other changes is that the ICC has increased the number of overs for delayed rain and interrupted matches in the tournament. So just to update everyone, for the first time, I'm reading directly from the article, for the first time in an ICC men's T20 tournament, the decision review system will be used as the governing body has announced that the system will be available the T20 World Cup starting later this month. The World Cup begins on October 17th, will be played in the UAE and Oman, and each team will get a maximum of 2 reviews per innings. The governing body has confirmed in June last year an additional unsuccessful review for each team in each innings of a match across all formats. But keeping in mind that there will be less experienced umpires on duty at times, owing to COVID-19 related reasons. The number of unsuccessful appeals per innings for each team has since increased to 2 for the white ball formats and 3 for the tests. They've also decided to increase the minimum number of overs for the delayed rain and interrupted matches. And so each team now will need to bat a minimum of 10 overs to be able to be called a full game. And that was as a result where in the Women's T20 World Cup last year, it became a big deal after the first semi-final between England and India was washed out in Sydney. And the absence of a reserve day saw England eliminated. So marquee events such as the T20 World Cup did not utilize the DRS in the past because the last edition of the event took place in 2016 when the review system was not in place for T20s. First ICC T20 tournament to have DRS was the 2018 T20 World Cup in the Caribbean. Women's T20, which had 1 review appeal. The same was used again in the 2020 editions of the Women's T20 World Cup in Australia, the last multi-team event organized by the ICC before the COVID-19 pandemic. It would have been, and I'm not going to read the rest of the article, but it is, in essence, it's just to say that the review system is going to be employed and that you must bat a minimum of 10 overs for it to be considered a match. The most noteworthy part is the DRS system being employed because I thought it would have been extremely beneficial even if they had 1 review allowed in the last hosting of the CPL because there were some matches that were decided on some errors in some instances, some quite obvious errors in some instances by the umpire. And I'm actually surprised that more mention was not made of them, because especially because of the nature of some of these. I remember the Chris Green was like an obvious one, and that was such a critical one in terms of Jamaica being able to qualify at the expense of Guyana or vice versa. And I think that these type of technologies, once they are available, some investment should be made in them if we really want to ensure that the quality of the tournament is and the authenticity of the tournament is to be maintained. It provides the support necessary, and I think that it helps reduce the margin of error for the umpires, whom are under a lot of pressure, even as it is generally in a match. And events such as the CPL, and I guess now they've agreed the T20 World Cup, need to ensure that they protect players and protect the authenticity and the efficacy of these competitions. So kudos to the T20 World Cup organizers. No, as I said, there are no updated injury issues as far as I'm aware. The West Indies haven't made any major announcements as to when the squad itself will be assembling, but I'm assuming that that would take place when the will take place when this IPL, that's what I'm trying to say, when this IPL is concluded. So, and in terms of the West Indies cricket team, there's still been a lot of back and forth about, the selection and who went and who could still go and who's left out, and I've been trying to, on social media or otherwise, in conversation with folks and otherwise, indicate that, at this point in time, I don't think it makes much difference haggling over who goes, who hasn't made it, and everything else. We had a nice discussion around it with Richard a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, and the way Richie outlined it, I think, was pretty obvious for most of us listening. And I really do hope that persons can now divert the attention away from critiquing the selection and the selection process to focusing now on retaining the World Cup and rallying everyone behind a very strong possibility that if all persons are injury-free, we will be able to successfully retain the World Cup. So that would cover all things cricket. And because I was just reading through a quick article just before I started the program that Viv Richards had a fresh comment to make now about the World Cup and this non-selection of Jason Holder. Now, on to football, which is obviously going to take up the majority of my time in any event. We have the ICC Nations League final. I was watching pieces of it prior to my coming here. It was 0-0, but now France has Spain 2-1. I'm trying to get the minute update in the 89th minute. And last bit of activity, which is kind of why I've been so distracted somewhat, is that Mbappe just threw away a chance as he had the opportunity to put France even 3-1 ahead. Hugo Lloris had a big opportunity. Well, he took charge of an opportunity, failed a big opportunity from goal scorer for Spain, Oyarzabal, and he is having an amazing game, as well as his Gavi from Spain. They really held France very well in the first half. As I said, it ended 0-0. And now we have 5 added minutes. Spain leading France. France hit me up. Spain leading France. The goal scorers for France are Spain is trailing France 2-1. Goal scorers for France are Karim Benzema in the 66th minute and Mbappe in the 80th minute. And Benzema seems to be really enjoying mentoring Mbappe, even though Mbappe is coming across more and more like a spoiled brat. Benzema seems to be working with him. And currently, Spain are trailing. So France will be maintaining their European dominance. I'm happy about that because of my fascination and impressiveness as it relates to Paul Pogba. I was trying to get a bit more stats in terms of who created the 2 goals. So it was a Hernandez goal. Or was the question of offside? And Benzema was the one that was Spain took the lead through Oyarzabal and turned it around. So, I'm just trying to get to the conclusion of this one. To give my overall thoughts of the league and the League Cup and how I thought it went off. It's a little underwhelming. Prior to this, earlier today, there was a 0-0 draw between Belgium and Italy would have come out successful on top of that. The and the exact details on the match. In the absence of that, the third place match was won competently by Italy to be, and for some reason, unable to draw the details of the game. Choose league. Italy 2-1 Belgium. So but they are not allowing me to so maybe do so. Last week, we had an interesting conclusion to the Premier League weekend before this international break. This was part of the discussion I would have wanted to have a bit more with David, had he been able to join us this afternoon. And those matches were played on the 2nd and the 3rd of October. Quick review of those results: Arsenal and Brighton 0-0. So Brighton was able to slow down Arsenal's rampaging run, all things Arsenal considered, and they were able to hold them to 0-0 draw. The Wolves overcame Newcastle 2-1. Higuain, welcome.
Hello.
Now, actually, just I see you wearing the Italy shirt. We were just discussing the fact that they put Belgium out of well, they took third place and resigned Belgium to fourth. You watched that match? I didn't have the opportunity to watch it. Were you able to watch it?
No, I wasn't able to. Well, no, just follow little updates, but that's the only.
How did that one go? Because I was following the France match, but I didn't have any information at all to offer.
Yeah, just by following the updates, so it looked like, as usual, Italy was able again to dominate. Well, to me, from just looking at the stats, it seemed like Italy almost played with more of a full strength team than Belgium did. That's just basically looking at the stats, because you see like Chiellini and all those guys played, and then you had Aguero and Berardi scoring. So it just seemed like they almost had more of a full strength team than the Belgians.
Okay. And Belgium didn't play with the golden generation.
Yeah, it seems like they're losing that, because they were tagged that before the start of the Euros earlier this year, and now, I mean, I guess this golden generation is now only able to make it to what? The semis?
Semis, yeah. Because that. Have they made any finals so far in the last few? No.
Actually, they haven't. So they're just only able to make the semis, and they were what? The number one ranked team prior to the Euros. So I don't know if it's a matter of experience, but to me, maybe they just don't have. I don't even want to say they don't have the quality players, right? But maybe they just don't have the quality players at each position that you would see in like Italy or France, whereby when these guys make a sub, the guys coming off the bench just as good as the guys who they're subbing in. So it could just be that.
Now, because let me throw a thought in there. Do you think that Roberto Mancini is the coach? I mean, he has brought them further than they've ever been before. But I don't recall Roberto ever winning anything of note during his tenure at Everton. I believe he was before, and one or two other clubs. Could it be that he lacks that additional caliber at that level? Or could it be a mental thing? Let me put it that way.
It could, okay. But remember, he was, maybe it goes back. I'm going to answer your question, but maybe it goes back to, they say great players don't always make great coaches.
Right.
Because you had Mancini, who was a dominant player in his day. He played for, me anyway, in my time, possibly one of the best Italian teams in my time, my era of watching Italian football. But maybe it's just that. Maybe he's in the and
he did he win anything of note then, even though he was that great?
No, but he played for. Didn't he play for Milan or Inter? I think he played for. No. He played for Juventus. But to me, he possibly, if I'm going to click on his name now, I'm almost certain that he have won quite a few. I'm looking to see if he never won.
I like him as an individual. I remember when he used to do a bit of commentary after he lost his job. I believe it was with Everton that he was playing, and then he had lost his job with Everton. And I said to myself, as good an analyst as he was on your TV and everything else, his teams, they played good football, but they never won anything of it.
Well, he managed Man City back in 2009-2013, and then he also managed Inter. But as to what you're saying, because he only played for Bologna or Sampdoria. I actually thought he played for Inter as well, but he didn't.
Hold on, make sure we have the right one. Is Martinez coaching Belgium.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm actually pulled up Mancini for.
Because I think Mancini is Italy, yes?
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
Italy
My
just
bad.
win.
No.
Italy,
Yeah.
Italy just win the Euros.
Yeah. They had the team switch. So Mancini just won the Euros with Italy. So my bad.
Yeah.
Martinez. Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Martinez,
Martinez
yes.
with Belgium. Sorry. Yeah, but no, he hasn't. So he hasn't been able to. But maybe he just isn't the right man for the right job, as they would normally say.
Yeah,
They're just not in the beginning. I'm not saying getting Henry in there. Henry was with the team. And again, look at it. Let's go back a step further. Because let's go back to last World Cup. So we're not even going to go back to the Euros. Last World Cup. Basically the same squad. Good management team. Young players. Because you have guys coming from the under 21 into the senior team. So it seems like they have a really good system whereby they produce good players, but maybe the issue is just, it could be mental, maybe they just have this mental thing, so we're just good enough, we don't ever finish. We reached pretty far in the last World Cup, we reached semis in the Euro, we're back at semis in the Nation Cup, but we just can't finish. And it could just be just not having just not having enough of the right quality players.
And I don't know. You talking about a team that had stars from striking positions all the way back, You're talking, and we're not talking about world beaters like Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku. You're talking about Eden Hazard. You're talking about Yannick Carrasco. You're talking about Axel Witsel. Courtois was the number one goalkeeper in the world for quite some time. So your whole spine good, plus you have a proper striker, plus you had a solid defense. And in fairness, they were ranked number one in the world at different points in time. So I am just saying, I'm just putting it out there that given his history, as good a coach as he is, there are just some coaches that are good bridesmaids.
Yeah.
For the lack of better expression.
You actually see it in a lot of sports though. Like, look at I was trying to remember his name now, whereby he just could carry a team to the NBA finals, but he just couldn't win.
Don't pull it off.
Even for a while, Pat Riley.
Yes.
Pat Riley did it with the Knicks, and he did it with the Heat before he actually won. So it was just like, and Riley was just a good coach.
Yeah, Mike D'Antoni is another one. Very, very good coach, but he couldn't carry them nowhere. And in those days, but you're right, Pat Riley noted that. I don't think Pat Riley did it as a coach, Pat Riley did it as a president, I think he may have performed similar roles, but I'm not certain. Was he the coach when they won?
No, it was the Latino guy, but he was the president of Heat at the time.
Yes.
When they won.
Yes.
But he did it that's what I'm saying. So he never won it as a coach, and he actually carried the Knicks, with Patrick Ewing and all that. Then he shifted from the Knicks, moved down south to Miami, did the same thing with Miami, but they just couldn't win.
Couldn't win. I mean, arguably, he was coaching at his peak during the Michael Jordan era, and not many teams can claim to win, but you still have men like Greg Popovich, who used to win back then. You still had the coach for the Houston Rockets, who had a season or two between there.
Yeah, Woody, the same thing.
Yeah.
All these guys couldn't win at the time, exactly during the same Jordan era, And it was even harder for Pat Riley because remember, he was in the East.
Yes.
Woody T and Greg Popovich were coming out of the West, but it was even harder
Chuck Daly. Remember, always say that Chuck Daly went two. That before Jordan could catch himself.
That's true.
He pulled off with the Bad Boys. He pulled off two gritty championships. But you're right.
Yeah, boy.
There's just some coaches that just don't have that little bit of extra. I mean, you're nice guys, nice communicators. You know the game. You know what I mean? You have all the qualities to make a top coach. but there's a little bit of an edge. That's the word I'm looking for. The big winners always had it. Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, when he was there, and even then, his Mr. Nice Guy persona didn't help him all the way through his career. He revolutionized football because of the demands that he started putting on his players. But nice guys, I keep saying this to people, nice guys don't win things. You know, if you look at the real winners, persons like Jordan, Tom Brady, John McEnroe, you name them, Roger Federer, Tiger Woods, you know, these guys, you have to have that additional edge. The winning coaches, you have to have that extra edge to you. Man, the same Mancini. For Italy, you have to have that little extra edge. You have to know what it takes and be able to do what it takes to win.
Yeah, but what do you think though is the extra edge? Because look at it, Phil Jackson were able to do it with the Bulls and then come back and do it with the Lakers. You know? Who else? Who else? I'm just trying to think of coaches who have won with different teams, different eras. Because you know
Mourinho.
Yeah.
Mourinho was able to do it with what, 3 different teams?
Yeah. The special one.
Special one. You know, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Pep was able to win local leagues.
Yeah.
With what, three different teams now.
Mm-hmm.
You have those that can, and the thing is that sometimes they're not the most likable character. There's some things about them that they're not likable in some way or the other. They're not cuddly.
They don't. I wonder if it's because that is true. Because if you look at them, you know, they're staunch characters. They don't smile much. You would tend to hear that they have issues with players. You know, because you hear a lot of times like players would either maybe say part of a statement out in the public and stuff like that. So you'll hear like they might have issues with players. But these are the guys that win. You know, so it was the same thing whereby they said with Phil Jackson, sometimes you'll just see him sit on the bench and look at these guys play and probably put his hand in his head and just walk off. Issues. You know, you see the same thing with Pep. You saw the same thing with Special One, whereby he had, you know, sometimes players would have issues with him whereby, you know, when they get sub, like he'll just sub you. Because maybe it is because these guys see, I don't know if it's the right thing to say, maybe they saw themselves not really bigger than the players, but they saw themselves, listen, I'm the manager, I'm responsible for you guys, I'm gonna run the team how I see fit.
Yes.
And it seemed that is how they ran. That is how they ran the team, and maybe that is why they were successful with different teams, because it's not the makeup of the teams are so differently. Yeah, like sometimes I do say that Mourinho kind of lucky because he tend to get great teams and he just causes them to win. But he actually takes teams that haven't won anything, even though they were considered to be good teams, and made them win.
Yeah.
You know, Man City, the same way. Like Man City wasn't like, it was just, as I said, Manchester was always red. No, Manchester turned blue, you know, because he just built the team with that kind of, and even though he's not there anymore, they still play with the same, you know, the team still structured that way.
I mean, Chelsea.
Chelsea, same thing too.
Yeah.
And he had a problem with, well, maybe he didn't have a problem. But anyway, there was a rift between himself and Drogba. Because, you know, when he first came, himself and Drogba. And even when Drogba, the last year when Drogba played for Chelsea, it was similar like that, whereby even when Drogba scored the goal, I remember looking at the match, it was a FA Cup, and Drogba scored the goal in the match and ran off, but he ran off the field, like after the match. He didn't shake the coach's hand, he did nothing, and this was Drogba leaving English Premier League, and he did that. And what was it? And it was nothing because Chelsea won the cup. Chelsea won the league following that Chelsea was in the following year. Well, even that year, I think Chelsea was in the Champions League, and the following year they were in it again. So it means that, but these are guys that you bring them in your team and you're gonna get results. It might not be, well, actually almost immediate results.
Well, the thing is that you still have to know what it takes to get there. From the perspective of Mourinho knew, because he went to Porto and he was able to overcome the Portuguese league with Porto, and went in there as underdogs, right? Rebuilt Porto and did so easily. So when he carried that experience out to Chelsea, he already knew what he had in mind. And he knew what he wanted out of his players. And he demanded equally across the board. Alex Ferguson will tell you that he also demanded and was very ruthless in how he managed the team, because like you say, you're paid to see the big picture. The player could say and feel whatever they want. Fans could say and feel whatever they want. Your job is to win trophies.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. You know? And only some coaches have that know-it-all. For example, I do not think that Gareth Southgate has what it takes to win a trophy with England. Not because they don't have talent, you know. They have a lot of talent in there. But you can't pander to pressure players, anybody.
Media, especially, and the English
media.
Especially media.
That might save your criticism, but it's not going to win you anything.
Correct.
You will always be also rands. You know, Didier Deschamps, on the other hand, now ain't afraid to follow up with nobody.
No,
you mess up, you're all good.
Yeah, and easy like that. You mess up, you don't play.
You don't play. You know, and he's been able to manage all of the big egos in France, because everybody considers Pogba a problem child. And it's the second major trophy in the last 5 years that these fellas win, 5-6 years. You know, and it's a mostly young team. Benzema only now come back into it because, again, the champs must say, well, let me give you a chance now after you messed up. So, you know?
Yeah.
And Benzema now.
And that's the thing.
So
and that is the absolute truth, because look at it again. If you're looking at the squad that played today, right? Beat Spain 2-1. You know, the squad that played today, it's the same thing. Like, looking at the players, like even with Benzema coming in and what his name is? You call him Woodchild, Mbappe. You know, he too should be lucky, and I think he's being played because, you know, he definitely has the skill. There's no doubt that he has the skill, right? But he just have to learn to control that and manage that a little bit better. Know that, yes, dude, you're good, but you're still not at the level at which your attitude is at. You know, and thing, because Mbappe have to look at it, be lucky, because after, even though it is tough, missing the penalty in the Euro, even though it's tough and stuff like that, but he quite lucky, you know, because the French media could be, man,
very hard. Just as hard and vicious as the English. Well, what happens, so Gary, with us, is that we now have to close off on spot on time, because there's a program coming on at 5. So thanks very much. Albeit when we started a little bit delayed, and I think may have been a little low key and all, but I still want to thank persons who have decided to stay on. Thank you for joining me, and we will catch up on the next week's program. I was trying to secure Richard for this one, but I wasn't able to get him, but I'll try to again confirm for the next one as promised. All right, so take care of yourself. Thanks a lot for being here, and thanks to the listeners. Thanks to everyone who participated. Have a pleasant evening from the bench meeting.
For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football and everything in